Police are considering charges in a mobile home fire they believe was triggered by a meth lab blast. It happened Tuesday night in Onepot Township in Allegan County. Detectives with the West Michigan enforcement team say they found evidence leading them to believe it was caused by a one-pot meth lab. Two men were at the home at the time. One suffered burns over half of his body. The other has burns on his hands and arms.
Meth continues to be a growing problem in much of West Michigan. Some local authorities calling the one-pot method specifically an epidemic. Now the time of year may result in more dangerous meth making. Joining me on the phone with more on that is Captain Joe Taylor with the Kalamazoo Valley Enforcement Team. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
No problem.
Tell us a little bit more about one-pot meth making. Very dangerous. Tell us what goes into that.
Well, the one-pot meth process, there's several different hazardous materials that goes in there, but probably the most flammable aspect is the Coleman fuel that they use. But a lot of these components that they use are flammable or explosive, and if they don't gas off the bottle, the one-pot bottle, in time, it will explode. And that also, because of the accelerants, causes the fire to spread quickly, and we're going to see a lot more of them here as the weather gets colder.
Let's talk about that. As the weather does change, what will we be seeing? Because you're saying that fire spreads so fast, it's tough to put out in time?
Yeah, well, it's tough to actually get the... by the time the fire department gets there, it's so fully involved, even in the city where the response time is quick. Because again, what you're talking about, instead of let's say match lights a curtain on fire, it takes time to go up. Here you're actually talking about fuel, very intense fuel, and it goes fast. Like our Alamo Hills apartment complex, that we're still working that case that's meth related. They tried to put it out, but because you're talking about fuel, you can't put it out just by throwing a blanket on it, throwing water on it. Just makes it worse, and before you know it, it's too late.
In your opinion, what can be done about this? Tell us a little bit more about how the fight against meth is evolving. What's your stance now when you go in to battle this whole issue?
Well, basically, to be straight honest with you, we're actually losing the battle. We put a lot of resources towards it here in Kalamazoo County last year with a meth coordinator for 2 years, a grant position, and then an extra deputy we got. We did well over 100 labs, locked a lot of people up, sent people to prison. And the problem was far worse when we were done with that period than when we started. And it's the problem you have is that the large labs we used to have, the Red P and the anhydrous labs, were so involved and took up so much material. It took up 3, 4, 5 hours to cook a batch of meth. So one meth cook could only teach 2 or 3 other people over time to cook because of the involvement. Then they come up with this one pot, a very simple, small process that takes 25 to 35 minutes to cook up a batch of meth, and one cook can teach 30 people how to cook. So then you have that exponential growth of cooks.
So you're left with basically just trying to combat something that you can't even really chase.
That's correct. And in a business within a business is people that go out and buy the Sudafed to sell to the cooks. They'll go out and buy a box of Sudafed for 12 or 14 bucks and sell it to the cooks for 35 or 40. Sure. And there's a problem within a problem. The only way we're going to be able to control this problem is if the legislature creates it so that they control the Sudafed, and that doesn't mean by you have to show ID. That means that you pretty much like a prescription, but through the MAPS program or through the pharmacy program where you actually have to enter in that Joe Taylor just bought a box so that the next pharmacy knows that they did.
I see. Okay, tougher regulations in your opinion. Well, thank you so much, Captain Joe Taylor with the Kalamazoo Valley Enforcement Team. We appreciate your insight on this tonight.